All right, hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is Monday, August 23rd, 2021. This is your quick evening tropical update. Tonight in the Atlantic Basin, we have no active storms. We have a couple areas of interest to watch for, so we're going to go ahead and run those down in this side of the basin, and then we'll jump over to the Pacific side of things. In no particular order tonight, we have a tropical wave located in the eastern Caribbean Sea, producing a lot of scattered showers and thunderstorms, but nothing organized yet. This wave will generally draw off to the west in the next coming days and could be developing into a potential tropical system towards the weekend near the Yucatan Peninsula and eventually the Gulf of Mexico. And it is something to watch for Texas and Louisiana. We'll talk about that one in a minute. We also have two other invests, a tropical wave in the central Atlantic. This is generally moving to the northwest and will be near Bermuda later on in the week and weekend. Some development is possible in this region, but right now, early indications are it probably stays away. And then we have yet another African wave moving off the coast. This generally will likely begin to follow the first invest in the coming days. Neither of these are much of an issue for the United States. Any time within the next, 5 to 7 days, it'd be down the road before past that if they were going to be any issue. So we'll go ahead and show you the National Hurricane Center's map. We have the remnants of Henri still over the New England region. Really hasn't moved much at all and will begin to move tomorrow as it finally gets out, but still is dumping some rain. And again, our three invest, they all have about a 40% chance of development in the next 5 days. So this is a lot quieter than what the map showed yesterday. This disturbance right here in the middle, this one was highlighted in yellow in yesterday's video. Hurricane Center went ahead and threw these up, although we had talked about this one before the Hurricane Center put it up on their map officially because they keep it within the 5 day window. So we're going to spend most of our time with this system down here in the Caribbean. So what we're kind of watching is a broad tropical wave with a lot of moisture associated with it. You have some upper level troughing in this region. This is kind of pumping in some wind shear. So this isn't really likely to develop despite being in warm water for the next couple days. Also, the atmosphere is going to be a bit suppressed for a couple days as a passage of a Kelvin wave moves through. So some of the thunderstorm activity you're seeing is going to be a little bit more limited. But what you do have is enough of a trigger down the road for what we have developing off to the west, which is this broad showers and thunderstorms region, which is what we're sort of watching for as kind of a Central American gyre pattern where you get this broad cyclonic rotation near Central America. You get a lot of tropical moisture in tow, and then you have this broad circulation, and then a tropical wave kind of moves into the broad circulation and then begins to spin up. So we can see this on the GFS model and a little bit more zoomed in here. So we'll go back to today and we can see a lot, or really today. So you see the tropical moisture kind of showing up on the model here, and then you also have this really huge swath of moisture across Central America and Mexico. And what's going to happen is this wave moves across in the coming days, and you can see by Friday, the GFS model actually shows a weak area of low pressure way down in the southern Caribbean beginning to kind of rotate up, but you'll have this broad, vorticity area rotating in. And although there's some dry air on the model, in this deal, you're pulling all this moisture from below and from the deep tropics of the Pacific. And by the weekend, by Saturday, the GFS does develop a broad, messy tropical system near the Yucatan Peninsula. It tracks it over there and into the Gulf of Mexico towards early next week. Now, this is a definite possibility. You can see here on this model, it shows a very large system, but a very sloppy system, and not terribly low pressure, 998, and a very broad system. This is very common. Systems that form from this kind of pattern they're actually kind of rare for late August, but when we do get these kind of systems, they have a ton of tropical moisture with them, but they're also very large. Larger storms take longer to condense and coalesce and spin up and become stronger storms because there's just so much mass to get turning. It's like, if you turn a really big like monster truck tire, like, yeah, once you get it going, it rolls, but it takes a lot more force than like a little car tire. And that's kind of the difference in a big system like this and like a smaller, storm that would have a little bit better chance to spin up quickly. But these systems can produce a ton of rainfall, and anything in the Gulf of Mexico this time of year is obviously a big deal and something that should be watched. The European model is a bit different solution. So again, I'll run you back through the GFS on this model. So again, you can see here, wave for a couple days, some broad vorticity starts down in the southern Caribbean Thursday, Friday into Saturday. You have a developing tropical storm making landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula, and then you have a second landfall in northern Mexico on Tuesday or late Monday night. This is again just one run of the GFS, just kind of spitballing. European model sees a little bit different solution. The European model kind of sees that same broad rotation down in the southern Caribbean on Thursday, but it actually brings up a much weaker storm in the Yucatan on Friday. But notice how the European is coming a bit further north, and it's also a little faster. Sunday, you have it in the southern Gulf of Mexico, but then Monday, Tuesday, the system actually develops on the European model, and it shows the potential for a strong tropical storm or a hurricane making landfall along the Texas coastline from Corpus Christi to Houston region. And again, just another model's general guess. We don't really use models to predict the future of storms that haven't formed yet. Once the storms form and the models understand what they're looking at, we'll kind of go off that, but this is just the model guessing right now. But when we have two global models signaling this general pattern, it's time to start paying attention. So this sort of pattern, who should be paying attention? Well, right now, Texas and Louisiana, the western Gulf of Mexico, should be paying attention. If whatever comes out of this can lift a bit further north, as the European model shows, potential for a landfall is decent right now, and it does appear that the conditions are going to be favorable. The water is very warm. Grace has a small pocket of cooler water in this area where she moved across, but it's not terribly large. And the upper level winds will be very favorable. The GFS shows very light wind shear aloft in the next coming days. GFS model just showing this here on this model, 999 millibars, a system moving into the Yucatan. Notice all of this outflow aloft, indicating that broadly there's not going to be hardly any wind shear in the upper levels to talk about. So it looks like, wind shear will be light, water temperature is very warm, and of course, water or moisture conditions don't appear to be much of a problem right now. Sometimes this does get overzealous, it can change, but it looks like your baseline ingredients are there for if a wave or something were to spin up in the Caribbean to develop more into the Gulf of Mexico. So then it becomes a question of where exactly does it go, and it's just too early to call. So Ida is the next name on the list, so we're going to watch this, but we do have a couple days. Again, it's Monday night, so we have several days to watch this. But folks along the Gulf Coast from Texas to Louisiana should be keeping a close eye on whatever this could maybe be in the future. Other two waves, not a whole lot of model support. This is what would be 97L. This really moves up near Bermuda in the next couple of days, and eventually the models do develop this, but it starts going backwards, which is common in the subtropics. It's hard for a storm to hang out here and not find an excuse to turn up and away from landfall. It's not always the case. Henri, as an example, Henri managed to come back, but generally systems that are already east of Bermuda generally find a way to move back out to sea, so I'm not too worried about this one. And the one behind it, the GFS, doesn't really develop it a whole lot. It looks like drier air, maybe in the vicinity, maybe a little bit of Saharan dust moves off. Wouldn't be terribly concerned about that wave, although it may have a better environment before it moves north to develop, so we'll keep an eye on it. But again, neither of these waves a big concern for the U.S. at this point. So we'll go ahead and move over to the Eastern Pacific, where we do have Tropical Storm Marty as our main player. We have maximum sustained winds 45 miles an hour. This is what Grace was, but Grace has since weakened over the mountains, and when she came offshore, she reformed into a new storm in the Pacific named Marty. She won't have very long. Water temperature is not particularly favorable along this route, so she's right about, or Marty's right about here right now, but he'll be moving into much cooler water. Anything in green, not really going to support a whole lot of activity. In fact, will mostly weaken the storm. So not a big issue moving offshore and away from land. And there is one more storm that's set to form a little later in the week out there as well. The same general pattern that may spawn something on this side is also going to spawn a storm on this side, and it'll move parallel to the Mexican coastline. But really, right now, not expecting any major impacts, although it's been a busy season in the Eastern Pacific as far as amount of named storms. Already potentially to the end storm before the end of August. That's I don't know if that's record, but it's up there for sure. And Central Pacific Hurricane Center is still showing no storms, although we clearly see what the leftovers of Tropical Storm Linda moving right through the islands today. This probably isn't a tropical storm anymore, but was producing convection, a closed low level center, and winds of 40 miles an hour as of like this morning. So this was a break by the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, not actually affiliated with the National Hurricane Center. So I'm not sure who exactly has responsibility for this. I think it's some entity in Hawaii does, but this is a miss. This was some kind of tropical system impacting, even though it may not be classifiable right now at landfall. This should have been warned a lot better than don't worry about it, everything's fine, nothing to see here. But minor thing there. overall, just, we need good record keeping nowadays, and this is not good record keeping. And we'll wind up in the central or the western Pacific, where we don't have much going on. Tropical Depression Omeus also has been issued its final advisory by the JTWC. This will move into the Korean Peninsula in the coming days, but it's no longer really tropical and just going to produce some heavy rain. And it's back to quiet in the western Pacific. It's something it's basically been for the better part of several months. Very odd, quiet season over there. So that's what we've got, guys, tonight on your topical update. We will continue updates on what could be Ida maybe towards the weekend. I don't know. We'll see. We'll probably get an invest tag on this tomorrow. We'll get our first model runs and we'll begin to get a better idea. But this is going to move pretty slow for a couple days. It's going to take until about Thursday, Friday before you begin to see anything starting to form in this region. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep you updated and we'll just roll along with the updates as they come out. So until then, thanks for watching. Have a good one.